my name is Jeff. This is 2A Self-Defense Law. What we do is we help people understand the law of self-defense in the simplest terms possible. We take the fear out of getting it wrong. I really wanted to show you this video and some of the comments behind it, because this is what I truly believe when people are talking about, well, what should I tell the police or what not to tell the police, because that is a big debate right now. Massad Ayoob, a well-known self-defense advocate, preaches the point of the tell little. 99.999% of all self-defense attorneys will say, shut up, don't say anything, because of a simple fact. You don't have to prove that it was a self-defense event. The state has to disprove that it wasn't a self-defense event. And there is a big distinction with that. Now, what the problem that becomes is what Massad Ayoob does is he looks at what could have gone better in a particular self-defense event, and why is the state going after this person now? And the main reason why the state's going after that person now for a truly good guy self-defense event that Massad Ayoob gets into is simple. Not enough evidence pointing to the fact that it was a self-defense event, all right? Not that it wasn't a self-defense event, but it was a self-defense event. And that's something that I kind of preach about with the tell little effect. Now, the tell little effect is not just blathering on and on about every little detail. It's simple little facts. You know, you say your name, the guy, this is a person who attacked me, the weapon's over here, and maybe there's some, the victim statements over here, or some witnesses over here. And then you shut up, okay? You just point him into the right direction, because when people start walking through a scene, it's not uncommon for rounds to be stuck in the paramedics' boots and walk off. When more people get in the area, sometimes physical evidence will not be preserved. And you may need to have those physical evidence pointing at you, saying this is exculpatory evidence, saying this is my innocence. That's what we're really talking about, the difference between Massad Ayoob getting into a self-defense event, saying this is why you're in trouble right now, compared to a criminal defense attorney who only deals in criminals trying to get off and claiming a self-defense event. There's a huge difference to that. So you get the tell little, the blathering, and say nothing. Well, blathering you shouldn't do, even though it worked for George Zimmerman. And say nothing all the time, 100% of the time, if it is truly a good guy self-defense event, you shouldn't do also. But I'm readily recognizing the fact that there is a large amount of population, somewhere north of 95%, where the tell little is probably going to be the best thing. If you're a criminal, if you're on drugs, you don't know how adrenaline works in the body, you probably should shut up. But if you are listening to this video, you probably have a 50-50 chance of telling the little effect that Massad Ayoob and you know, Andrew Bronca at one point did recommend that. He's kind of backed off on it a little bit, it sounds like, over the years. And you got to recognize the fact. Now, part of the problem is that you're going to have to be educated, all right? And you're going to have to go through innocence, eminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness to get all through that. Now, there's going to be a clip here of this guy, and this guy was a Lyft driver. If you want to watch the entire video, I'll have it linked below, but I'm not going to play his event. But his event was that he was a Lyft driver. He was being robbed, and he talked to the police, and everything worked out. Well, he does have a good lawyer. I like this lawyer, and she readily recognizes that everything went well, but she was also hesitant, saying that, you know, something could have gone wrong because you could have said something wrong, which is true. You could say something wrong. When you're dealing with adrenaline, you could have a time distortion, a distance distortion. You could tell the police officer something that is factually wrong. Okay, and then if the police are saying that something is factually wrong, they'll start to wonder what's going on. And that's why Massad Ayoob is pretty specific. This is a guy who tried to kill me. His weapon is over here. He came at me from this direction. Those are the witnesses, etc., etc. And then you shut up. You're not getting a timestamp. You're not giving distances. You're not giving more information. And then you basically shut down. Hey, I'm kind of jittery right now. I'd like to cooperate with you and probably, talk with an attorney at the time, but you don't have to explain that. You just shut down and say, I no longer wish to speak until I'm represented. And you go from there. Now, this what I'm trying to set up here is very important, because if you don't go through innocence, imminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness, and you say, well, the law is going to be protecting me because I know in the state of Wisconsin where this happened, there is a castle doctrine. And in Wisconsin, the castle doctrine extends to your vehicle. So you have not an added protection, an added layer of security of not having to prove that it wasn't a self-defense event. Now, if you are relying on a protection that the law gives you, it could be suspended or taken away at any given point, in whole or part. Because all the lawyers do, lawyers are paid to argue. And if the judge agrees with it, a specific situation that mitigates innocence, imminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonable, what you thought was part of law is now gone, you're hurting. But if you consider all 5 of them, you have a better shot of walking away than not doing what they do. Listen to this. It's very important.
I want to talk to you again about why you didn't shoot at the guy inside the car. I understand, we talked about the guy outside, threw his hands in the air and screamed and ran away. Now we're looking at, quite possibly, and you have your attorney, it's Amy Scholes.
Yep.
Amy Scholes is here with you, so I want to make sure that you don't say anything that's going to get you in any trouble, and I'm sure Amy doesn't want you to say anything that's going to get you in any trouble. But a lot of folks, and we talk about the castle doctrine protections in your vehicle, and here's some guys who are in your vehicle, and Amy, I'll go right to you on this one. Does castle doctrine protect you when you're inside, or provide you that basis of protection? I know I don't want to say protect you, but is castle doctrine covering you when you're in your car?
It can in certain circumstances, but in this case, because these 2 individuals were invited into the car, they're not breaking in, and so as a result, castle doctrine wouldn't apply then.
Okay, so did you know that at the time?
I did not know that at the time.
And that's a perfect example. There's always castle doctrine is going to be changing from state to state, and it's not going to be consistent. Since the castle doctrine has been evolving over the past 120 years or whatever. So there's going to be a little caveats to every little situation. You'd rather have the protection in the courtroom compared to considering it in the life or death event. So how many people out there actually knew that in order for the castle doctrine to kick in, that the person has to break in unlawfully into your place of abode or your car? I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people out there that didn't know that is basically the trigger in most of the states, not all, okay? And that's where the castle doctrine is different from state to state. Most states require an unlawful breaking in, where some states don't require an all unlawful break-in, okay? Protect yourself. Go through all 5 and go from there. Now, the next part of the video, I want to stick in there just real quick. And some people are apprehensive about leaving the scene of the crime, if you will. You need to leave the scene of the crime, especially if it's a safety issue. And we talk in this video talks a little bit about it.
The scene of the incident.
I did.
And how far did you go?
I drove about a half mile from where the incident occurred to the nearest gas station, where I could park in a kind of an open, lit up area and wait for the police to show up.
And
there's something called the doctrine of necessity. Basically, what the doctrine of necessity does is it allows you to disregard some laws if there is a greater evil to mitigate. So By you leaving the scene of crime, the doctrine of necessity will allow you to do that so you can protect yourself in a safe manner.
Did the police have any problem with you leaving the scene of the incident?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, dispatcher, when I told her I was leaving the area to go to someplace where it was safer, she said, okay, that was perfectly, fine, and to just wait there for the police to show up.
How was your interview with the police? How did that go?
Now, this is where we start getting into what he was telling. I'm going to be playing a little bit more about this. If some people don't like the length of my videos, well, I'm here talking to you. I'm discussing to you. This is for your physical education. It's not for your entertainment where you're just trying to get a TikTok 30-second download of what you need to do. This is a lifetime teaching knowledge where this needs to go. You can, in the lower right-hand corner, you can go down here and playback speed right here and go to a higher playback speed. But this is what I want to talk about. Just listen to them, okay?
And talk to me about specifically what they did with your gun.
Police showed up at the gas station and started talking to me, trying to figure out, A, identify who I was, B, figure out what happened. I, presented my identification to them and my CCW permit. And at that time, they asked for the handguns. They just moved them to the back of one of the squad cars, or squad SUVs, so they could just kind of keep them safe for that point in time, secure. And then they proceeded to go ahead with the investigation, getting the rest of the interview from me. I pulled the SIM card from my dash cam and presented that to them and helped them figure out where the videos were that they were looking for on there. And two officers showed up about 15, 20 minutes later to take me back to where the incident occurred. And then they brought me back to the gas station, and they continued to fingerprint my vehicle, and that was about it.
Amy, is there anything that he did right or wrong in that?
Now, I like Amy. She does, I think her professional opinion always has to err on the side of her client. So that error is to shut up. But I think she also readily recognizes that his cooperation gave him the victim sign, and the police started looking at him as a victim. But again, his scenario, he was a Lyft driver. He pulled his gun on two yahoos. What I also need to say is it's not uncommon for a robber to call the police and say this dude pulled a gun on him. So it's basically a race to call 911 first, because typically whoever the first one to call 911 is going to be more considered the victim. Okay? Now listen to her. I think she gives great advice, and I think I also gave enough information at the beginning of this video where she says the same thing.
Interaction with police, as he tells you about it right now. Should he have given his SIM card, or do you want to keep that? I know that, and I'm a police officer. I like people to tell me everything that happened. But I'm also editor of Concealed Carry Magazine, so I'm going to tell you not to talk to guys like me. And Amy's probably going to give you that same advice. But based on what he just told you there.
Right. Look, this situation turned out as well as it possibly could have under these circumstances. As an attorney, I would advise no. We don't make statements to police without an attorney present. We don't provide that information without an attorney present, or certainly without at least consulting with an attorney first. Obviously, in this situation, Scott did everything right, and ultimately that has been shown with all of that evidence that the police were able to obtain and that Scott provided to them. Generally speaking, we would advise talking to an attorney first, but in this situation, it did ultimately work out.
Yeah, and what I've told people about, I'm trying to strike that perfect balance between cops and the good guys with a gun. I'm grateful that you were able to provide information to the police to help them advance that investigation. But at any point, did you feel like you were being asked, what we will call guilt-seeking questions, something like that?
No, actually, to the contrary, the officers were very amicable. There was never any.
Now, I want to also clarify this. Yeah, the officers in this particular Wisconsin town was very amicable. Well, that's because it was Wisconsin. Let's say you did this on Long Island somewhere. Let's say that you did this in Los Angeles County. Some officers do not believe that civilians should be protecting themselves with guns. Yes, this is 2021, and we still have officers who believe that it is their sole duty to protect the public, when it's not. The law has specifically said over and over and over and over and over again, and there's also statutes and case law to back it up, that law enforcement has no duty to protect your life. Absolutely none. Because this is what would happen. If someone came into my house while I wasn't here, killed my wife, if law enforcement was responsible for her life, everyone would be able to sue everyone, sue the police officers or the police department or the state for not being able to protect. So it's your job to protect yourself. It's your job to protect your loved ones, and you go from there. Now, I truly believe USCCA does a very good job in their information. I'm highly irritated at USCCA for continually to say that they're in an insurance program. They do not sell insurance. They are not licensed in any state to sell insurance. They sell a membership, all right? And in order for them to pay out on your membership is you have to do everything right, okay? Think how ridiculous that is. If you have a lawful self-defense event, they will defend you. Well, that's kind of like going to the emergency room and them not paying the doctors if you're not sick. Does that make any sense to you? Look at other programs if you are getting memberships. I have a specific one. I've said it in the past who I am with. I don't think I need to say it anymore because they don't use the language of if you are in a legal self-defense event, they will stand by you. You know, what a fair weather friend that is. But again, USCCA is second to none in all these organizations in getting the information to you. My name is Jeff. This is 2A Self-Defense Law. I hope this helped.